Hello all, and thanks for selecting my video. I just want to show you how I fit my cycle carrier to the back of my car. I bought it from Halfords. It's a Saris, I think it's the make of it, the make of the bike carrier, and I fitted it and I took it to Halfords and they saw how I fitted it and they were happy with that. They say that's how it was meant to be fitted, so I'm quite happy with it as well. So I'm going to show you how I fit it, and what I'll do is I'll turn the camera around and I'll actually film the components of the bike carrier, and I'll get my friend to hold the camcorder whilst I fit the bike carrier onto my car and also fit the bike to the bike carrier. And it's just like a few other points I'll mention also. Okay, so I'll get this turned around and I'll film the actual carrier first of all and go through some of the components as well. Okay, cheers. Right, so that's is showing this is the type of carrier that I've got. Saris cycles. I bought it from Halfords. It cost 146 quid. So that's the box that it came with. It's all readily assembled when you buy it. This is all assembled. We just need to adjust it. These adjust. You just slacken it off and it slide that along and it adjusts on that spline. But I'll show that in a bit more detail when it's on the car. See, my car's got the hatchback, so it needs the like dumbbells that hook into the car. But I'll show that when I'm installing it onto the car. Okay, so I'll get my friend now to film me fitting my bike onto the rack as well. So I'll get that on the car first. I'll get him to film me putting that on, and then also fitting the bike to the rack when that's on. Okay. Right. Okay, so I'm going to fit the carrier on to the car. No, I'll go through roughly what I'm doing. What you want to do is, this is the hatchback, so you need, it's got the dumbbells rather than the hooks, because you don't want to put the hooks onto the glass, otherwise it'll damage the glass. So you get them, put that in from the inside. So you would get the strap and you push it up through the top of the hatchback. It's a bit fiddly, take a bit of time, but you'll get there eventually. Just pull that through. You just make sure that you don't have the things caught between the hatchback and the car, so you have it down just that wee bit. Keep it away from the hinges as well. It's the same for the other side. Just fit that through. So it's the same again, you just make sure that these are clear when you close the boot, because you don't want to get that caught. Close that. Just pull them through. Try making sure they're not twisted. Everything's okay there. And you get the bike carrier. These are adjustable. I could go into more detail on that. On the car. you've got your 3 straps, buckles, coming out of each side. You've got 3 on that side and 3 on the other side. You just feed them through the. When you get the one with through the buckles, they would just, if you could bring that in next to it, you would just feed these through buckles like that. Pull it through. And as that tightens, as there's pressure on there, that kind of locks the locking mechanism in there so it doesn't slide through. So it's biting into the actual straps. I'll just do the same for the other side as well. So you're also getting the sound effects for the phone. Somebody's pressed the phone. It always happens. It happens to me, it happens everywhere. It's called sod's law. So excuse that. So that's the top bit done. Then you've got the hooks. It says on there, it's got a mark, it's got side, which obviously goes on to the sides of the car. So you would just adjust it, slacken it off. That just hooks in to the shut line for the boot. But it's still slack at the moment. And then it's the same with the other side, you just put that in there. Again, it's all slack, it's not tightened up or torqued yet or anything like that. It's just... So when you're fitting this, what you do is make sure that try and get it as central as you can. If you could avoid having it twisted, that's all the better. Try to have them as straight as you could. Oh, it's come through. Just hook that on the bottom. Oh, sorry, that's it. What's that? Now you're just sort of tightening it up. Now what they say, these things here by the way, you try and get them in, they adjust, you just get the rubbers up against the bodywork so it doesn't, it's got something to support on, or rest on. It's the same with the glass as well, just with that. And the saying Halfords, the rule of thumb is if you can move this, it should move the car, because it should be pretty tight up against the car. But it gets tighter as the weight of the bike goes on here, it actually tightens up more. It's putting pressure on these things. That's pretty much the carrier onto the car. So I'll get the bike onto the carrier now, which is really fairly easy. And at the nice area, it's wearing it is at Ochterhouse Hill. It's got nice walkways etc. all over this area. It's really good for that. I mean, you could take a mountain bike over the tracks, but I don't. And just come in here because it's a nice area. So, stuff that up. Could bring that in a bit. This bike basically just sits on these supports there. You try and get the bike in as much as you can, so it's up against this support, and then you watch for your pedal doesn't dig into the bodywork. You try and get that down. You could put something between that and the number plate. Likewise with the straps, you could coat that with insulated tape or something so it doesn't scratch the paint. And And for locking the bike onto the rack, this is actually capable of carrying 2 bikes, that's what this other one's for. You can put another bike there, but I only have the one, so it should be really quite easy for it. Shouldn't be a problem. If we can do 2 bikes, it will do 1, and then that would just tighten up. Should tighten quite tight. Just pull that there. That locks into the mechanism. That's your release. So that locks the strap on. It's like a buckle system. It just slides. So you just get this, slide it through in there, and you just pull the thing, and you hear it click, and that's it basically locking. That's him torqued, and as it's trying to release, as it's trying to come off, it's actually locking that in further. It's biting against the teeth. So that's the top bit secured. Then you get the. You then secure this vertical secured to the carrier as well. It's just another strap. It's 3 straps for this. And it just slides through. Yep. Just tighten it up. That's it. And then that's locked in. So that basically is the bike secured to the car. And then what you do next, or what I do anyway, is I then just go back through it and just retorque up these straps. So I'm just going through them again, just making sure they're all tight. And I do the same with the other side. Just torque them up again. Being careful not to hit your windscreen wiper. I'll come to these points in a moment actually. So another measure that I do is, once it's all torqued down, tightened down, the remaining bit of the strap, I just basically tie that into a knot. And you can tie it into, so that if that fails, which it's unlikely because it's the tighter that tries to release it, the more pressure on there, it's actually biting it harder to lock it. But if you tie it into a knot, that's a little bit of extra security because that knot will not fit through that buckle. So at worst it will just come down a bit, but it won't actually come right off. And you could put another knot in. That's what I do. I mean, you put an extra knot in if you want. Just do the same with the other side. I mean, you can tie the knot whatever way you want. I didn't go to the, I just tie knots the way I tie them, and that's it really. You tie them whatever way you want. So you just repeat the process. So I'm taking this bike off again. So I won't need to actually show you how to do it, but you just basically, for all these loose straps, you just do the same again. You just tighten them up into knots at the other end of the buckle so that the knot can't go through the buckle. Should the buckle fail, it's unlikely. And then, as I say, you can put something between the pedal and the registration plate so it doesn't damage your number plate. Then you just make sure the bottom straps are torqued up. You make sure your bike is in line with your car. You don't want it sticking out. So what I do as well, I've got other additional things. So I've got these black bin liners. Now I use them for additional support. What I do is I tie them onto the bike as a carrier. And well, first thing we want to do is tie the handlebars to the bike. You just put a couple of knots in there, and then that'll stop the handlebars from moving the bolt. That locks them in place. And I've also got an elastic band that goes on the brake as well. I call it the handbrake, and it stops this wheel from spinning which will stop your pedals from spinning about. And you can get another bag to tie it onto the carrier for additional support. Now you put it around this bit here. Just being careful it doesn't damage your cables or anything like that. And just tie it on. And that kind of gives it just a wee bit more support. Like I say, this bike carrier is capable of carrying 2 bikes, but I've only got the 1 bike, so it should be light work for it. So that's pretty much the installation of the bike carrier. These straps, again, as I say, they wouldn't be hanging there. You could tuck them in, you could tighten them, tie them into knots, etc. and to tidy it up as well. So what I'll do is I'll just get that then. That's right, that's the bike carrier with bike installed onto the car. What you want to do is make sure that the width of the bike doesn't outwidth the car, so you just want to make sure all the bits it doesn't go any further than your wing mirrors. As I say, these straps, I've never tried them in yet. This is just a demonstration. You would just tie them into knots like this, just so that it's an extra measure, so that won't fit through the buckle should that buckle fail. These are your most important ones. You want to try and get them you don't want them twisted if you can avoid it. The seal here, that's just the weather seal, so it's not actually going to do any harm as such. That's not the seal for the water, that's just the weather strip seal. The main seal's under that. But the pressure is going on these like dumbbell things. So it's hooked onto here. That's your main pressure. That's where the weight of it is fixed onto. But this being it looks like a saloon, but it's actually a hatch. But if it were a saloon, the hooks, instead of having these plastic dumbbells, you would have metal hooks just like this that would go onto here. So if this were a boot, the top straps would hook onto the inner lip of the boot lid. But of course you can't put the metal clamps up against the glass because that will just burst through it. It wouldn't secure it. So you've got to have for a hatchback like this, you've got to have the plastic barbells. Some of the points I was going to mention were the registration plate. It's obviously covered. You don't want your lights covered. At night the light still, you try and avoid it if you could, but there's enough light shining through. So if you're putting more stuff on your bike, you want to try and keep this area as clear of your lights. The number plate you could get fitted, well, you could actually buy a number plate. I got quoted £16 from Halfords. I mean, you might get it cheaper elsewhere, I don't know, but you would just tie that on to where it could be visually seen on the outside. Other points I'd like to make is the straps. Before you go anywhere, just check the condition of the straps, make sure that they aren't torn or anything, or make sure all the buckle locking mechanisms are fine and all the stitching here is in good condition. You could put like tape around there to stop it from scratching the paint, but it shouldn't actually hit that unless it's really windy. But you could. That's coated. That's like dip coated anyway. These clamps, but you could put additional stuff around that if you want. Let's see all the stuff I mentioned. Yeah, the handlebars. What I've done is I've just used a black bin liner because they're strong. I mean, that'll take a lot of force to tear it that way. So you could use anything you want. I just implemented and used that for the time being, and it works. So that stops the handlebars from flapping around while you're driving. And I've got an elastic band over the rear brake, and that basically that just keeps the back wheel from spinning around, which will then lock these pedals from kind of help the pedals from moving about. You could put something between the pedal and the number plate. So yeah, that's pretty much it. that's pretty much how I fit my bike carrier to my car. And Halfords, as I say, they saw how I'd done this and said that's how it's supposed to be. So there's lots of different makes of carriers, bike carriers, but the one I got, the Saris cycle racks, is the one I went for, and seems fairly straightforward, simple enough. I bought one online before this. I won't say the make, but it didn't work. I sent it back. It just wasn't adequate. But this is quite sturdy. This is really good. I need to make sure that these plastic rubber things are up against the. Say they won't be strapping. The one thing I've got to mention also is that the rear sensors will go off all the time the way this is set up, because obviously it's picking up the wheel being right against. So when you're reversing the car with this on and it's a rainy day, make sure that you switch the wipers off completely at the stock switch, because if you put it in reverse, like this model of car, the Octavia, the rear wiper comes on automatically when the front windscreen wipers are on. So as soon as you select reverse and your front windscreen wipers are on, the rear one will come on automatically. So if you don't want that happening, so don't inadvertently put your rear wiper on. And when if it's raining, switch your wipers off. Write yourself a note if you have to. I'll be doing that. And switch your wipers off, then select your reverse gear. And the thing about the beeper will go off, the actual alarm for the parking sensor will go off continuously, because it's the actual radar sonic waves, or whatever, the waves it detect, because it reflects off the object at times how long it takes. It's like so it's picking up. Obviously this is going to be well within too close, so it'll just be constantly a tone all the time. That's really things like that that you watch for. So yeah, there you go. Okay. Oh, there's just one point I forgot to mention as well. Feature on this: you can adjust the angle of these of the arms that come out. You've got this sort of spline mechanism here. So you would just turn these things. You would slacken them off, and you would slide. You would just slide that along to this unsplined part, and you would turn it, rotate it on there, the angle you want. Then you would slide it back onto the spline, and then just tighten it. So you would just tighten it clockwise, and it goes for all four of them. You could adjust this as well. Again, you would just slacken off that lock nut, and then you would just slide it off the spline to the desired angle that you want, and then tighten it back up again. So the inner ones, you would slacken off the lock nut, turn it anti-clockwise, slide it onto the unsplined bit, turn it to the angle you want, slide it back onto the spline, and then lock it. And the same goes for the upper arm. That would just slacken off, turn it anti-clockwise, slacken it off, move it off the spline, adjust it either or that, adjust it to the angle you want, slide it back onto the spline at the angle you want, and then you just lock it in. So that's how you would adjust the angles of the arms and that. I forgot to mention that. Right, so I hope that was helpful for you. If you've got the same model bike rack I've got, it's the Saris cycle carriers, then if you were needing guidance on how to fit it, I hope that helped. That's the way I fitted it, and I took it to Halfords and they said that was fine. Like I say, you'll see that in the rear view mirror, the plastic dumbbells, because it's a hatchback, I'll need them as opposed to the hooks. That's just, I had to buy that as an additional extra. The standard ones came with the metal hooks, which is no use for a hatchback. But yeah, so I hope that helped. Helps anybody that wants to see roughly how to fit it. The additional straps, the black bags that I used, you could use anything you want. I just used them because it's the first thing that I found, and they're durable. They won't come apart. You could replace them. They're dead cheap. I just used them. So it's worked before in my other racks, and I've had that racks for years, many years, and it's been fine. It's just additional strapping, and it's waterproof as well. So Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope it helps. Okay, thanks, bye.